Good morning, everyone, and welcome to SeaWeek 2024. My name is Karen from Australian Environmental Education, and today I'm going to take you on a journey beneath the waves, really following some of my scuba diving stories over the years. And I've been scuba diving for 30 years. So quite a long time. I was really lucky to actually learn at high school. There was a marine science course, and I was able to go on that. And then, as part of that, in year 12, I learned to scuba dive. So it was really, really exciting. And I have continued scuba diving my entire life. Some people keep asking me how many scuba dives I've done, and I actually don't remember. I think I'm up to sort of about 400 by now, which sounds like a big number, but for people that have been diving for a long time, if you work it out per year, it's actually not that much. Now, the majority of scuba diving I have done is around Sydney. So it's a very different marine environment that I'll be sharing with you today. Now, I have been scuba diving on the Great Barrier Reef, in the Pacific Islands. I haven't done any cold water scuba diving. So there are certainly places where people scuba dive and they need to wear different types of wetsuits called dry suits, and they actually wear clothes underneath to help them stay warmer. And essentially, dry suit, you don't get wet on the inside as much, and wetsuits, you do get wet. So your full body wetsuit. I do certainly dive in winter sometimes, and we wear a hood made of wetsuit material as well. And that is one way that we can stay a little bit warmer. Now, I can see some people putting their hands up. Please put your, if I ask you a question, please put it in the chat. But if you've got a question for me, like I can see one now. Oh, I'm frozen. Let me know if that continues. Thank you very much for letting me know about that. Please put that in the chat if I am freezing. Luckily, when I'm scuba diving, most of the time it is really warm, and so I don't have to worry about getting too cold. And the further north I scuba dive, the warmer it is. The You know what, the better it is. I do prefer to dive where it is certainly warmer. When I'm up in the Great Barrier Reef, I actually don't even need to wear a wetsuit. In the water is so warm. But usually when I'm diving in Sydney, even in summer, I will wear what's a 5 mil wetsuit. And the thickness of the wetsuit is depends how warm you stay. So a lot of people in winter will wear a 7 mil wetsuit. And a lot of the time when people are doing things like surfing and swimming, they might only be wearing a 2 or a 3 mil wetsuit. So there is a lot of differences there. Now, I'm going to show you some signals as well about what we do when we go scuba diving. So this one is a pretty universal one. Hopefully it's not too backwards for you. So this is the OK symbol. We use this quite a lot. If we're doing a boat dive, we actually will do this instead. We'll put our hands on our head because it might be a little bit hard for the people on the boat to see you doing the OK symbol. So we usually put our hand on our head like this to let them know that we're in the water and that we're okay, that we didn't hurt ourselves when we jumped in. If I'm just doing what's called a shore dive, which means we walk in from the sand, or sometimes we might jump off rocks if it's not too rough, you will always scuba dive with at least one other person, and that's called your dive buddy, and that's when you'll do the OK symbol. So another couple that are really important is this. Now, it is not a bad thing. It's not a thumbs down as something bad's about to happen. For us, when we're scuba diving, it is one of the most exciting things because it means we're about to go under the waves. So the thumbs down means we're about to go underwater. So thumbs down, okay, to your dive buddy. And then what you do is you let your air out of what's called your BCD, which is a buoyancy control device. I'm going to show you a picture of one in a minute. And you let the air out of that. Because you're also wearing heavy tank and a weight belt, you start to sink through the water once you let that air out. And you will go down. If it's a shore dive, you might start shallow. or you'll swim further out and then drop down when it's deeper. If it's a boat dive, you are going to be further out already. So you're going to drop right down, often following the anchor line of the boat, to give you a sense of where you are and where to come back. Because you need to make sure that in a shore dive or a boat dive, you make your way back safely to the boat as well. Okay, so everyone, hope you're all okay. We're about to go down. And let's have a look at some of the pictures that I've got for us. So the first one I am going to show you is just about the marine environment. So the marine environment starts from the surface of the high tide mark. So if you're familiar with looking at rock pools, or if you live on a river or the coast, you'll see that the tide goes up and down all the way to the deepest part of the ocean, which is 11,000 meters deep. And if any of you are going to join us for the marine science quiz at 1 o'clock, some of these questions will be in there as well about how deep the ocean is. And we'll see different types of animals depending on how deep you go. So for a scuba diver, the maximum we usually go down, if we've got a deep diving license, is, you know, getting to sort of that 40-meter mark. The deeper you go, the colder it gets and the more pressure there is. So the animals tend to be up in the sunlight zone where the sunlight reaches. So most of the things that we'll see are really in that top sort of 20 meters or so, but the sunlight can get all the way down to 200 meters. But the deeper you go, the colder it gets, the more pressure, and the darker it gets. So this is me snorkeling. You can see that I'm actually wearing gloves. I've got my mask, and you'll notice that I actually wear glasses. So in my mask, I actually have prescription lenses. So if you think, oh, I wear glasses or I don't see very well, I'm never going to be able to snorkel or scuba dive, you can actually get lenses for your mask. And I've got my snorkel. So when I'm at the surface, I use my snorkel. So I have my snorkel even attached when I'm scuba diving, because if I come to the surface, I might not want to use or waste the air that's in my tank. I can use my snorkel to get air that way. I wear gloves to protect myself from anything spiky or rough underwater, but also it helps me protect any animals as well if I bump into them or touch them. Even in warm water, I will wear a full body rash vest, which is called a lycra. And so it's that rash vest or swimmer material, but it's a full body one. And again, that means if I bump into anything, I'm protected. Especially good if there's jellyfish and stinging animals around, I will be protected from there as well. So this is my dive buddy. I'm at the back there. This is my dive buddy, my sister at the front. And this is actually up at the Central Coast at a place near Terrigal called the Haven. And you'll see that we're wearing our hoods, which means was actually a winter dive. This is some of the equipment that we need. So this is what we're doing at the moment is called a buddy check. So both people will check each other's equipment to make sure our air is turned on and all of the connections are put in properly. So we have a dive computer, which is sitting at the bottom of one of those hoses. It has a compass. It tells us how much air we've got in our tank, and it can actually tell us how deep we are, how long we've been down there, and if there's anything else. And it kind of logs and records all of our dives. Most importantly, on our back there, we've got our tank. That has got our compressed air. So it's not oxygen. Oxygen gas is actually poisonous if you have too much of it. So it is actually just compressed air, the same thing that we'd breathe usually compressed into the tank. What we're wearing is called that BCD, buoyancy control device. So it's not like a life jacket. It is actually connected to our tank. And we can have a button that we can put air in and a button that we can put air out. We can actually blow in it as well if we need to put air in it when we're on the surface. That goes up and down. So that essentially helps us control. If we put air in, we float up. to the surface. If we took air out, we float down and we sink further to the bottom. So there's some of the pieces of the equipment. We can see that we've got our wetsuits on as well. And this is us in the water here, just about to go down. And as we go down in this environment, we're not going to see this. This is our coral reefs. And coral reefs do have about 25% of the world's marine life is found in these warm tropical waters. So this is actually on the Great Barrier Reef. Really, really beautiful coral formations. But when we're in Sydney, we see other things. So we might see mangroves if we're around our rivers. And mangroves are a really important marine environment. They're like the nurseries of the sea. So lots of species of marine life. So things like crabs, lobsters, baby sharks, baby fish, all spend their young parts of their life in these shallow areas like mangrove forests, which are just a certain type of tree that either have those big roots that sit out or roots that stick up, and that protects them from predators. Deep sea environments, which we cannot go when we're diving because they're too far down. You need special marine submarines to go down there, have a really interesting variety of life. They used to think that it was too cold to really have a lot, but because some of these deep sea environments are near deep sea vents, there's actually really hot, warm water in these areas here, but the majority of the deep sea is very cold. But this is what I see when I dive around Sydney. Anywhere where we, instead of tropical waters, we call them temperate waters. So it's not super cold, but it's not as warm. And these are called sponge gardens. And just imagine these beautiful colours. A lot of the time when we see sponges washed up on the shore, there's no colour left to them. But when they're living, these are actually animals, not plants. And with the water, they're actually swaying. So if there's a current in the water, you'll see these different animals, the sponges and sea lilies, moving in the water. And it's quite a beautiful environment on these rocky reefs. Now, what we also see is lots of brown kelp. And if you do live near the coast after big storms, you would see this washed up on the shore, as well as some of the dried sponges. These are not as big as those really long kelp forests that we get in Tasmania and in America that might grow for 20 metres. These ones here are about 2 to 3 metres, and they have these roots that sort of stick onto the rocks, and lots of animals will use these to hide in as well. So they're the two key environments that I see a lot around Sydney. These cooler waters than the tropical areas with these brown kelp forests and these sponge gardens. And these are the what we explore. These are some of the animals that we would see. Ooh, this one here is a turtle. So unfortunately, I don't see a lot of turtles around Sydney. They certainly are here. There are 7 species of turtles found around the world. And Australia is really lucky that 6 of those species live in the Australian waters. This particular one here is a green turtle up from the Great Barrier Reef. And they are quite big. So, they're getting sort of about the shells at least sort of 70 to 80 centimetres. And they are marine reptiles. So they do need to actually come up to the surface to breathe. Oh. Got all these coral reef pictures, apologies. I think because just after I came back from the Great Barrier Reef, we can see some anemone fish in there as well. So we get these big forms of coral where lots of fish will live in there. And what you tend to find is they'll swim out, and as you get close, they'll hide back in the coral. So the sponge gardens, the kelp, the coral all provide protection for a lot of our fish life. Another different types of coral. These ones are actually soft coral. So they're actually a little bit squishy. So they will move. You can actually see them moving a little bit with the ocean currents. This is a moray eel, and I've seen these free swimming, but most of the time you see them hiding in a rock crevice or in the coral. They are found all around the world, and there's many different species. And this is one of the reasons I certainly wear gloves, because they often will wait there with their mouths open, ready to catch some food. Okay, this is my favorite animal to see. And it's the first one I usually see when I go diving around Sydney. They are the blue groper. They are a really big fish. So often I'll be swimming along and feel like something's really close to me, and I'll look over my shoulder and there it will be, a really big blue groper. And the blue ones are big adult males. So they're protecting their environment, and they are what we call territorial. So they will look after their neighborhood and keep an eye on all of the animals that come in and out of that environment. And that includes me when I'm scuba diving. So they'll keep an eye on me until I leave their territory. They are protected in New South Wales. And depending on where you are from, you probably have a state fish. And the state fish of New South Wales is the blue groper. They are absolutely amazing, and a really big fish, sort of getting to sort of 80 centimeters long. And yeah, they do keep an eye on you. And when you leave their territory, the one that's in the next territory will often come and have a look. Because, as I mentioned before, we tend to go in and out in the same place. So when I come back at the end of the dive, they will be there to greet us and to check on us again. So this is one here that's camouflaging. So a lot of the time, marine animals don't necessarily swim and move around. They're staying in one spot, and this is what we'd call an ambush predator. So it hides in the bottom of the rocks, and a lot of the rocks get little bits of sort of algae and things on them and go quite pink. And so this stonefish is actually camouflaging really well. It's got a really big mouth at the front there that will wait for fish to come close and gulp it down. They also have very big spines along their back, and they are considered the most venomous fish in the world. And I don't see them very often, but I did one particular dive in a space of about 10 minutes. I saw 4 of them. So it's another good reason that you watch where you maybe kneel, and watch where you put your feet. And really important, people that are walking through marine environments, that they're wearing reef shoes and those kinds of things, because people have been known to step on these. What is the state fish of Victoria? Zoe's asking. I'm not 100%. That could be a really good thing to research, but I'll see if I can send it in our follow-up material if there's a list that have all of the state fish. One of my favorite things to see when I'm scuba diving is octopus and cuttlefish. Octopus are absolutely amazing, and the ones that we have in Sydney do get actually quite big. My sister is particularly good at finding octopus, and I will actually share a video of one of our scuba dives. It was really kind of a murky dive. We couldn't see very much, and she spotted 5 octopus in the space of half an hour, which I thought was pretty impressive. Oh yes, so Brooke's also asking what the state fish of Queensland is. I will find those out for you and send it in our follow-up information. I love this picture here of the octopus, because you can really see those suckers very well, and they use that to move around. And the octopus is considered one of the smartest of the animals that don't have backbones, those invertebrate animals. This particular photo is actually from the Black Sands area of Indonesia. Very volcanic, so a lot of their sand is very black, as opposed to our white or yellowy sand in Australia. But I have seen an octopus doing something really, really similar with only 2 shells, but they use it to actually hide and protect themselves inside. But by far my favourite animal to see are these ones here, are the cuttlefish. Cuttlefish are absolutely incredible. They a very, what I would call expressive. They want to come up to you, they'll use their tentacles, they'll change color, they really let you know what they want. And the largest ones are found in South Australia. The giant cuttlefish are, meters in size. Most of the ones that I see around Sydney are about 60 centimeters or so, but they can get really tiny species as well. This particular one is starting to use texture on its skin, and it's putting the front tentacles up. That's usually a little bit of a warning. It's trying to look a little bit bigger and scarier. And if we look at this one here, it's got the nice tentacles down at the front, but we can see almost like a little bit of a rainbow on the side there, and all of those dots are called chromatophores. And chromatophores, it actually just means coloured pores. So they use that to change colour, and they can almost flash with colour. They are absolutely amazing how quickly they can change colour. So about a third of a second, the fastest colour change of any animal in the world. And they do it quite a lot. So they might come out and visit, and they'll just stay one color. But if they're not happy, or if they're looking for a mate, they will actually do these color patterns, and they can change so quickly. They can change their body texture to be really, really rough. And as I said, putting those tentacles up, all of those signs with the color let you know whether to leave them alone or to come closer. So really, they are very, very fascinating. This one here, that is what we call a replica, is a smaller one. So we've got these long tentacles, the eyes that have a really interesting sort of S-shaped pattern in it. And they can actually see color with these as well. They actually change the shape of their eyeballs to help to change the color. The frill at the side here is how they move around. They actually move that frill and move slowly through the water. If they want to move fast, they've actually, in the middle here, you might be able to see it there, they've got a little tube, and it's called a siphon. And what they do is they can suck water in that. Oh, here we go, we can see it underneath. Suck water in that and blow it out, and they can actually move very, very quickly. Like octopus, they can use ink as well, and they have a cuttle bone, which is different to the squids and the octopus. What I love about these ones, if we look really closely, you should be able to see little marks in it. So those marks give us an indication of what might have been eating the cuttlefish. So sometimes the cuttle bones, well, they'll be floating around and birds might peck them or animals might eat them. But a lot of the time, scientists and marine biologists can actually look at these marks and work out whether it was a fish, a dolphin, a shark, birds chewing on it later, and identify the other species that live in that environment by looking at the marks in the bone, which I think is absolutely amazing. Zoe wants to know if I've ever seen a butterfly fish. So yes, I have. There's a whole massive group of fish called butterfly fish, and they can get really quite large, and lots of beautiful different color patterns will tell us which type of butterfly fish they are. But on the Great Barrier Reef, we do see those quite commonly as well. I've seen the lion and the scorpion fish with the big frills that are also can be dangerous because they've got venomous spines in them as well. So there is a lot of things in the ocean that we do need to keep an eye out for. Now, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A and I'll answer them as we continue. I'm going to show you a few more of my favorite animals. Well, this one here is one of my favorite marine facts. The largest eyeball in the animal kingdom is from the colossal squid, and it's about the size of a soccer ball. So think about that next time you're playing soccer or basketball, that's the size of their eyeball. It's actually bigger than any of the vertebrate animals, so animals with backbones, bigger than their eyeballs as well. And we can actually see those colored chromatophore spots really nicely around the eye as well. So a lot of people do not like sharks. I absolutely love them. And if I see a shark on a dive, it is very exciting. There are 3 types of sharks I won't dive with if I know that they're around: great white shark, tiger shark, and a bull shark. All of the other sharks, I'm pretty happy and comfortable in the water with. This particular shark is called a grey nurse shark, and it is protected in New South Wales because their numbers almost disappeared because they are a very large shark and they look really scary. So people were afraid of them and they were being killed and hunted. Oh, here we go. Brooke is asking, have I ever seen a shark? Yes, I have. I have seen lots of different types. Amy's asking the same thing. Have I seen a great white in the wild? No, I have not, and I would definitely not go into the water if I did see one. But this kind of shark, the grey nurse, I have scuba dived with many times, and they are big, so well over 2 meters in size. Sometimes I've been diving and it's they've been babies, so they've been less than 1 meter in size. They are absolutely incredible, and I will show you some teeth of them in a moment as well to show the difference. So I've been diving with bronze whalers, great whites, white tip reef sharks, grey sharks, black tip reef sharks, wobbegongs, Port Jackson sharks, and I was very lucky last year on the Great Barrier Reef in the distance to see a hammerhead shark, which is the first time I've ever seen one. This is a wobbegong, sometimes called a carpet shark, and they often will spend time on the ground, on the base of the rocks, often hiding in rocky caves. So sometimes you might see a tail or you might see the head, and they are quite a big shark as well. They can get up to 2 meters long, and they have that amazing pattern covering their body to help camouflage in the bottom of the rocks there. These ones here have these little whiskers around their face that help them sort of feel around for food. They have been known to bite, and they kind of bite and don't let go, but they're not trying to eat us. It's usually if they get annoyed that might happen. Some sharks lay eggs, so we'll actually see some of those in a moment. And this one here is, I wanted to show you because of the teeth that's really different. This one here is a crested horn shark. I can see the little horns there. It looks very similar to a Port Jackson shark. And it's actually got a Port Jackson shark egg there at the moment. And another really close relation to the sharks are the stingrays. The stingrays get really big. So the common stingray is, the size of a big round outdoor table. They can get huge. So I'm just going to share this little guy with you. I'll see if I can put it on the camera. It's just tangled up. So this is a baby Port Jackson shark. And this is the egg that it comes from. Sorry, it's a crested horn shark. We can see from the horns there. So this one's actually a couple months old. Unfortunately, it died in a storm and it got washed up onto the beach. So the eggs there, they spend months in the eggs, about 8 months or so. And then they hatch out of the egg, and they would be really quite small. So much smaller than this one here. So this one's several months old. They do actually have a little spine there on their fin. So these ones here have plates that they kind of crush their food. So it's not traditional teeth that you imagine most other sharks having. These ones here, hopefully you'll be able to see. Oh, I'll put something dark behind it. There we go. So these are the grey nurse shark teeth. So that's why it's really, really different to the big triangular shaped teeth of a great white that is very, very serrated. And that just means it's like thinking like a knife. It makes it easier to cut through things, whereas these ones would be used, there we go, to eat fish. So the grey nurse shark is a fish eater. They've got lots of these very, very thin, long, pointy teeth that they use for a fish to swim by. They would grab onto that fish to try to eat, to try to get their food. So the little pointy teeth mean that they can get hold of a little bit of that fish to then be able to swallow it. I'll just go back to our questions. Are coral sharp from Brooke? Yeah, they really can be. So you need to be careful when you're diving, and that's why I wear that full body lycra, even if it's in warm water. And I wear gloves because you can actually bump into it, especially if there's a lot of current. You can bump into the rocks or the coral, and you want to just protect yourself from that. So any of the rocks and coral can be a little bit sharp, so you certainly do need to be careful and aware of that as well. Okay, I've got a couple more animals to show you. So one of my favorite diving stories is about the giant stingray, which I will tell you in a moment. These ones here are the sea dragons. So this one is called a leafy sea dragon. I've been very lucky to see one of these once. They're found in much cooler waters further south, so around southern Australia. This one is called the weedy sea dragon. It is found on the east coast of Australia. And recently they found another one, a red sea dragon found around in Western Australia, which is really exciting. Like seahorses, the males actually look after the eggs, but they don't have a pouch. So this is a male that's actually got eggs attached to its tail, and will swim around with those till they're ready to hatch out. They've got stripes and dots here, and even when they're dried, we can still see those on the fish. So I'm going to show that to you now. So this is a weedy sea dragon. Oh, might have to zoom out. So they're about 30 centimetres in size. So they are quite long. This one here, again, washed up after a big storm. So we do often see these washed up, unfortunately, on the beach if it's been really rough. That really long snout they use to suck up little bits of food. So you can see that they're not eating really big things. They're eating very, very small food. But we can still see the colour. Not the colour, but the pattern. So we can see the dots and the stripes down here of the weedy sea dragon after it's been dried. But I also wanted to show you this one here. So this is a pipefish. We can see, again, swimming in that sort of direction with that very long pointy nose again to suck up the food. And then this is what we would usually see as our seahorse. So you can see the dragons are far bigger than the other ones, and just really great that we've got 3 species of sea dragons. And they are very, unique to Australia, these ones. We've got another question coming through. Amy would like to know, Nadia would like to know if I've seen a pufferfish before. Yes, I have. And if you just wait one moment, I'll get one. I don't usually get this one out because it's really, really spiny. So this is a pufferfish once it's extended and it's puffed up. So I do see these quite commonly. There's lots of different types. There's some really big ones as well. So this is one that's been puffed up. So it actually sucks water in to make those very, very pointy spines stick out. So they're really quite amazing. Unfortunately, we do see them washed up on the beach quite commonly. I've seen them stuck in fish's mouths, stuck in stingray mouths, as the animal has tried to eat the pufferfish. The pufferfish is puffed up doing what it does, but it's got stuck. So it's got stuck in the mouth of the animal that was trying to eat it, and neither animal survived. So it's a little bit unfortunate that sometimes that's what happens with the pufferfish, that they both end up dying from that situation. Okay. Now, I'm just going to finish off with this because lots of people ask me what the biggest animal I've ever seen. Now, one day I'm going to go to Ningaloo Reef and go scuba diving and snorkeling with the whale sharks, and that will certainly be my biggest, but I have not done that yet. Some of the biggest things I've scuba dived with are the grey nurse shark that I've shown you, the giant stingray, that I showed you, and this animal here, which is the giant sunfish. And I went scuba diving in Bali specifically to see these. So we did 2 dives. One was to see the manta rays, which are enormous, and the second one was to see the sunfish. Now the sunfish are can be quite deep, so we did have to go quite deep to see it, and the color of the water was like that color blue, so it was very hard to know whether there's nothing to gauge distance. So I don't know whether I saw a really big sunfish far away or a really small sunfish really close to me, but these can get a fin tip to fin tip, sort of 3 meters in size. But what I think is the most amazing thing about the sunfish is this is what they look like when they're babies. So a lot of our marine life looks really, really different when they are young than when they are adults. So these ones here are tiny baby sunfish, and I actually love it because they actually look like little stars. These are the kinds of fish that would come from the open ocean and end up in those marine nurseries in the mangrove environments and in the shallows to help protect themselves to grow. Riley's asking, why is it called a sunfish? I think just because it's big and circular, and they're quite flat. So a lot of fish sort of, a bit rounder, but they're actually quite very large on one surface, but very thin on the other surface. So someone's obviously just decided that they would call it a sunfish. Have I swum with big whales like a blue whale? No, I haven't. That would be quite an amazing experience. A lot of the time, these animals are protected, so you're not allowed to get too close to them. So if I was scuba diving, or if I was on the boat going to a scuba dive and we saw whales, we wouldn't actually be allowed to get out and get too close to them. If I was about to get off the boat and dolphins came by and they came towards us, that's okay. I have been diving with seals that have come off the rocks, and they often, again, are quite friendly and they will interact with us, which means they will come up to us. But yeah, whales, especially when their migration times, are considered quite protected, and you're not really allowed to interact with them. In saying that, if I was in the water and they came up to me, that's a bit different because you can't actually then get out quick enough. So we do see a lot of video footage and things like that of whales, interacting with small boats or people in kayaks or people swimming. Especially now we've got some amazing drone footage. We've actually been able to see some really big marine life quite close to people. They've actually been able to see it with big sharks as well while people are ocean swimming. But yes, it's one of those things that we usually can't get too close to. They're being a little bit protected. So we've got a few minutes left. While you're putting your questions in, I'll tell you my favourite story about the giant stingray. So I was up at the Central Coast again at a place called the Haven, and we were coming in from our dive. So often when we're doing a shore dive, we'll actually just swim as far in to the shallows as we can, and then we'll get up because we're running out of air, and we might as well just use it all up. But it does also mean you're not as heavy. So we do kind of pop up to the surface a little bit when that's happening. And so I was swimming quite towards the end around some rocks. So I was probably in maybe 2 meters of water, maybe even a bit less. Most people would really almost be able to stand at the level that I was at. And there was a little rock in front of me with a little bit of kelp. So I thought, well, I'll go round the rock. And then I went, no, I'll swim over. It's always fun. So I swam over the rock, and coming the other direction was a over 2 meter diameter stingray. And it was almost like a cartoon where the eyes go, whoa! And it felt like that. I think my eyes did that. It was a big shock, wide, but so did the stingray. So the stingray was just as surprised to see me as I was to see it. And luckily, we made the right choice. The stingray went one way, I went the other way, and we just swam either way around the rock. But it was one of those moments of absolute surprise, and to see the same kind of surprise in the eyes of the animal when you're so close is a really amazing experience. And that's why getting into the marine environments, snorkeling, beach combing, swimming, scuba diving, sailing, all of those kinds of things are amazing ways to connect to our marine environment. Even if you are not near the coast, there's still plenty of things that you can do to learn about these animals as well. Do some research, discover your favorite marine animal. I do have a lot. And it does depend which ones, but I generally the cuttlefish are my favorite. But it's always a good dive when I see one of them. We've just got Amy asking, have I seen a black tip reef shark? Yes, I have. So I've been diving with both black tip and white tips at different times. They're not a particularly big shark, and they usually leave us completely alone. But it is something always to be aware of, that there are things in the marine environment that can harm us if we're not paying attention, or unfortunately when accidents happen as well. So giving animals space. So that's the same thing with diving or going in the water with the marine mammals. They absolutely could injure us just by their sheer size. A lot of animals like sharks will often try to work out what something is by biting it. It's their best way of working out whether it's something to eat or not, by giving it a nibble. That does not go very well for humans, because we don't have thick skin or a shell like a turtle. So they can be really dangerous. There are things with spines. There are things, hiding at the bottom of the ocean floor. So that's, again, one of the reasons why we dive with a dive buddy, to help keep us safe as well, to make sure if there are any problems, we can look after each other underwater. All of those things are true. But in saying that, and I have, as I said, dived with lots of different sharks, in 30 years, we've never had a major accident. A few scrapes and bumps when it's been rough, a few bruises getting out of the boat when it's really rough and sort of bumping into the ladder. But in terms of marine life, we use all of our protective gear that we can, and we look after ourselves, and it's meant that we've always stayed safe. So it's really important to follow the rules. And I love the marine environment. That's why I like doing sessions like this for SeaWeek. I also write about my experiences with the marine environment, because I absolutely love it. Now, do we have any final questions before we finish up for this morning? Okay, I think that's it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today for SeaWeek and sharing my love of the marine life, especially the different environments like the Sydney sort of cooler water, rocky reef environments. Now, if you do want to join me, come back at 1 o'clock for the marine life quiz. You can book through on the Dart Learning website. It'd be great to have you there, because we will be actually talking about some of the things that we've discussed today. Have I seen a scorpion fish? Yes, I have. Often they're quite small. Is that a real octopus behind me? No, it is not. It is a replica like that cuttlefish as well. Things that are soft bodied don't dry very well. So often they do need to be either preserved, or we make replicas of them. So some things can be dried, like my weedy sea dragon, but most of the time, a lot of things are going to be replicas because of that. Okay, what have we got? Another question there. Have you seen any catfish? Yeah, I have actually. Another one of my very, very strange marine stories, which was probably one of the times I actually felt most unsafe, was with a school of juvenile, so young striped catfish. They're only about this big, and what they tend to do is move in a ball. And so I was minding my own business, scuba diving, and the ball kind of went around me. So I was kind of in the middle. It went dark. I couldn't see the light. Lucky I was pretty much near the bottom of the sand. So it was okay. And I just kind of waited, and luckily they moved on. But it was a really, really strange experience. And I'll see if I can find a video of the striped catfish and how they do it. So you can imagine being stuck in the middle of a ball of those. It was very, very strange. So he wants to know, if I want to be a marine biologist, what do I need to do? Well, love the marine life is number one. There's lots of things that you can do at school, studying things like biology. You can study marine science, go to university where they and will do more marine science subjects, and they will actually do, lots of universities will have marine biologist topics that you can do. So yeah, they're the main things. There's lots of different ways. I'm not a marine biologist. I have studied marine science. I've studied biology. But technically I'm not a marine biologist. I absolutely love the marine life. So there's lots of ways you can still be really passionate about the marine environment as well, if you don't end up being a marine biologist. But yeah, there's lots of ways to get into that, Zoe. Starting off with your love of the marine world and doing different courses that will help give you that information that will sit underneath that you'll need for that. Have I seen a blue-ringed octopus, Amy? No, I actually haven't seen a blue-ringed octopus, which surprises me a little bit because I spent a lot of time at the beach when I was young, looking in rock pools and those kinds of things. So I'm actually surprised I haven't come across a blue-ringed octopus. But probably I'm glad that when I didn't find one when I was a child, because I might not have done the right thing. So yeah, very, very happy that I haven't actually seen one. But they are very small, and they're actually brown most of the time. They only have the blue rings, or some of them are blue lined. There's couple of different species when they're not happy. So if they're not happy and you can see the blue rings or the blue lines, definitely leave them alone. But most of the time they're just very small brown octopus that you don't see very much. Brooke says, thank you very much. Thank you all very much for joining me. I will try to share some links with you about all of the state fish. And yeah, please feel free to book in and join me for the marine life quiz, because a lot of the things I've talked about will be in the quiz. Excellent. Thank you all very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye, everyone.